Through the years, we've seen how the youth have become important contributors to the community and society. But can they also be a voice for young children in sustainable development? We will hear from our next speaker, who has been acknowledged as UNODA's 25 Global Leaders for Tomorrow. She is the co-founder of Climb Edu Now, a youth-led organization advocating climate action into formal education curriculum. Please welcome Indigenous youth advocate and Youth for Climate champion, Setyaki Kusumadireja.
Thank you very much, Leah, for moderating this session. And it is my honor to be in this room and in this space as a panelist to share my knowledge regarding how can you be a voice of children in the context of climate change. And also special shout out for all the fellow speakers for this conference, like Dr. Adrian Cerezo. I also talked to him previous days, and it is a great honor for me. As we know that there are nearly 2.2 billion of children from total populations on Earth, and most of them live in developing countries. Of course, they are in risk of the environmental degradation, such as pollution, heat waves, sanitation, rising sea levels, and many more. Children are amongst vulnerable groups since they have limited ability because they cannot protect themselves. But certainly, they are the asset of our future, especially as the human who survive on Earth. Because to the children, we lie our hope, because they will live in the future. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, there are a lot of problems, gaps, and barriers that should be addressed because children here act as the vulnerable group. The first is about the health. We know that children has developed their own immune system, but we still understand that some of them also develop, for example, allergies, just like most of the human on Earth. But I know that in the early childhood living, they also have illness, for example, or just common sickness like most of us. The pandemic COVID-19 also suffer the human's life in the past years, especially in 2021, and that's one of the worst years because during the pandemic COVID itself, not only us who lost a lot of children, but also children itself lost their parents, their guardians, or their caregiver, in which for the children, it lost their opportunity for the future of the education, their future leadership, especially when they want to take into account for the decisions making process in the future. We didn't know that, for example, children will be the leader in climate negotiations in the future, or the children want to be the environmental engineer. This is a lot of disturbance from the health issues, especially during pandemic. And then the environment. We understand that a lot of climate catastrophes, and then a lot of flood, a lot of drought itself, and even the war that caused pollution from the aviation, for example, forced children and families to go to the refuge or to go to extreme poverty. And in certain amount or certain number in the countries, this is not unique to certain countries, but this is also developing countries, that this number could also raise into monetary crisis, in which the children's future is affected. And the last is about expression method. We know that children need space to express themselves, to develop themselves, especially in the future for climate actions, for climate negotiations, for climate decision-making process. But we know uh, this is stick to the definitions first that children means that they are from 0 to 18 years old and children need legal guardians, as we know, so they cannot like attend certain meetings or even or just like bilaterals, for example, without the permissions or the chaperones. But we know that children also cannot negotiate on behalf of themselves, and they need what is like if they want to influence the policy sector, they need to build a huge like coalitions or um, a number of organizations, private sectors, and many others uh, to support them. Therefore, it is important for the intergenerational um, peoples or intergenerational awareness to also include it in this process. And the last about the expression matter is that most of the children living in rural or developing countries means that children cannot access for technology and probably internet connections and many other, which mean that they need more access for information, especially on the environment, on what happened from the climate change, and then what happened in the negotiations, for example, or even just news. This is important for them, but all these problems need to be addressed. And next slide, please. Just like what Dr. Cerezo said before about the importance of the early childhood and then the climate change itself, it is important for us to set a strategy as a next step because the main goal will be to ensure that all parties to recognize the children's right to a healthy and safe environment. This means that the right will be included, especially like the children's right to express themselves in the climate space, and then also the children's right to enjoy their childhood fully uh, into full of their life. So their agenda in the future will be achieved, and we still have hopes for the children that they will let us for a better future for only one earth. The first of this strategy is to enhance the well-being and securing the environment. We know that these goals should be because the United Nations, especially in the UNGA resolutions, will bind all member states, so they will obey this and ratify this agenda. And of course, this will be implemented into all member states, and we can spread this awareness into the intergenerational actions for the children. And the second is that we address the gaps and barriers so we can support the children. All the gaps and barriers include the uh, financials for children can be for larger like developing countries. We already know that the most of the global north countries are belongs to the developed countries, and they try to give the donors for around 100 billion US dollar for the most affected developing countries, especially developing countries with a safer like pollutions and then finance also allocations. Why? Because it will affect their future, especially in the educations. That's why climate education is important also to be integrated in the formal educations for the earth. And then from the systemic change, we know that all but both local, national, regional, and global need systemic change. We want to make this clear that the partnership and collaborations through institutional approach could support children and could enhance the children's participations in climate space and also protect the environments for the children itself. And also on the last is safe supposed to be included their voice, but we also understand that the negotiations process itself, especially in UNFCCC, is not designed specifically for children to join the negotiations, especially in the close negotiations. This is not only happen in UNFCCC, but almost all because why children, as I mentioned earlier, they are usually stick to 0 to 18 years old, which is the process of the negotiations is not designed for them. And usually their psychological situations can be also affected by their legal guardians or their chaperone. Therefore, they cannot, like, for example, doing the decisions making process themselves. They need guardians, they need everyone's to support together, and therefore we have to create specific space that could help them express themselves in a safe manner. That's all from me. The conclusion is that we need all support from all intergenerational sector, private sectors, from organizations, from adults, from other people to support children, because children is our future. Children will help guard this earth and take care of our mother earth. If we educate them well and educate them with the knowledge of the environment, means that we will help the earth itself to survive, and there is no extinction for women, there's no extinction for the future children, there is no extinction for humans, certainly. Thank you very much.